Welcome everyone to today's digital live event. When and how should commercial real estate owners reopen their buildings and businesses? Presented by Navigator CRE. My name is Ash Gonzandia, Chief Intelligence Officer here at CRETech, and I'm excited to be your host today. In a few minutes, we will explore the challenges landlords are overcoming and opportunities they are leveraging to reopen. We will hear perspectives from three of the most influential owner-operators in commercial real estate and technology on what the new normal will look like and the innovative technologies they will use to get there. While we're waiting for everyone to log into their digital seats, I wanted to quickly share with everyone a list of upcoming free digital live events here at CRETech. Tomorrow, we will be hosting a webinar on preparing the built world for the new normal presented by OpenPath. This Friday, we'll be hosting a webinar on CRETech Talks fully automated multifamily. Next Tuesday, we will hear from on New York State of Mind, conversations on real estate, innovation, and the future of the city, part 1, presented by the Real Estate Board of New York. On Tuesday, June 9th, our very popular virtual demo day, featuring some of the most innovative and leading and cutting edge technologies in commercial real estate tech. Tuesday, June 16th, we'll be hosting New York State of Mind, part 2, presented by Rebney. And then on Tuesday, June 30th, New York State of Mind, conversation on real estate innovation and the future of the city, part 3, also presented by the Real Estate Board of New York. So I see that we have a large crowd gathering, so let's just kind of get the show on the road here. For anybody that has any questions throughout today's webinar, please use the Q&A feature located on the bottom of your page. It is located on the bottom with the double chat feature. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Kevin Stoffman, Chief Operating Officer at Navigator CRE. Charlie Hobby, Managing Director of Product and Operations at EQ Office. Michael Beckerman, CEO at CRETech. And Roy Abernathy, Executive Vice President of Global Workplace Strategy and Human Experience at Newmark Knight Frank. Kevin, welcome. The digital stage is now yours, my friend.
Thank you, Ash. Appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for tuning in. A special thank you, obviously, to El Jefe, Michael Beckerman of CRETech. I know he gets asked probably daily to be on webinars like this. So Michael, thank you for taking the time to be with us and lending your expertise. And of course, to two of Navigator's most active and appreciative clients, Newmark and Blackstone. They've really leveraged Navigator, I think, to its full uses. I'm not going to ask them, full disclosure, for any proprietary information or examples of how the platform is specifically helping them in this environment. But I do have them on to lend some real expertise, right? We've seen a ton of webinars on COVID-19 and how it's impacting our business, and a lot of prognosticators weigh in with information. But we wanted some on-the-ground information, right? How are people actually thinking about reopening? So before I kick off my questions, I want to give the floor to Michael just to talk about a little bit about state of the industry and how they're managing this crisis.
Thanks, Kevin. First of all, I'm delighted to be with you, Roy, Charlie, of course, Ash as always. And I this week, I don't know how many people might have seen it. I wrote a little bit of a snarky blog about too many webinars, there's too many Zoom calls, there's too many videos. And, we're dialing it back on our end because we're on the content side and producing a lot of these things. But my main message was, if you're going to do something, do it really thoughtfully and have great panelists and experts talking about meaningful and actionable ideas. And this is exactly why I wanted to be part of this one today, because, thanks to Navigator CRE and particularly you, Kevin, you guys are really advancing the conversation and elevating it and helping people understand, how we're going to get back to work. What are some of the tools and technologies that landlords and brokerage firms should be deploying, And so thanks for all your support, allowing us to host this webinar with you. We're big fans of your platform, and it's been a joy to watch the growth and success of your company. I'll just say, because I've talked obviously a lot with all different parts of the industry to try and get a handle on what this all means in terms of innovation, technology, and getting back to work. And I think this is why this conversation is so important for me to learn too. And it's wonderful that we have the perspectives of Charlie and Roy and yourself, because I find that there's just this underlying tension that exists in the industry right now in the ecosystem, and it's a natural tension, and it's not a bad thing. But there's different constituents have different objectives in this environment. You've got the landlords that want to bring people back to work, and they want to do it in the safest possible way to create a great feeling of security amongst people that are going back to work. You've got the technology companies that want to provide a lot of these solutions that'll help in that regard. But then you've got the tenants, right? And the tenants are not in such a rush as I think a lot of people think they are. And there's a survey today that was in the Wall Street Journal by Upwork. I think about 60-something% of people that are in hiring positions are going to be hiring with the perspective of remote work being part of how they address the future. And for the most part, the experiment has worked well. I mean, people in that survey, they talked about the benefits of working from home, less commute, better quality of life, less stress. Yeah, there's things that they're missing. But I think that this is going to be here for a while. And I think this is a real fundamental shift in terms of the workforce. And, my message has been, if you're working with companies like Navigator, CRE, and others, and you're as forward thinking as Roy and Charlie's companies are, you're going to be really in such a stronger position to welcome employees back. And I think you have to do all that you can to create better environments, more secure, with greater safety techniques and applications, so that those landlords, those operators that will be the most successful in welcoming people back to work. So thrilled to be part of it. So thank you.
Of course, Michael. I put the word reopening in air quotes for the title of this webinar, because I think there's a misnomer that everything got closed in the first place. So I want to start there for both you, Charlie, and you, Roy. What was the concept of reopening? What does it actually mean to you and your firms and to your clients?
Sure. I think I might have been one of the main reasons that the air quotes went around reopening. At EQ office, folks ask us about, re-entering our offices, and, we say we never left. Our teams have been, on site, and our buildings have remained open, and, we've had our essential staff has, been working from home, where possible, but for the most part, our buildings have remained open. So what we prefer to refer to it, and it's more correct to refer to it as re-entry, because I'm sure Roy and others will comment, but the vast majority of our tenants did, we're under stay-at-home orders and did choose to work from home, and now they're coming back. So our plans for that reentry are to make the office environment as safe and low risk as possible of an environment for the firms that are able and looking to come back. It's obviously a very broad topic, but our view on work from home as well is that it's there's Zoom and other collaboration technologies, but our view is that the best collaboration technology is the office. And so when we talk to our tenants, and collaboration drives innovation, and that drives business success. And so we have a large number of our tenants who are looking forward to re-entering, and we're here to work and support them.
And Kevin, I mirror Charlie's perspective. We call it reboarding. So we kind of had to get off the plane. Now we're getting back on the plane to some extent. But we didn't close. And it's interesting from a pandemic perspective. This is first time that kind of the danger has been other humans. Typically when we've had to shelter at home or other issues, it's been a hurricane, a tornado. I grew up on the Gulf Coast where we sheltered every time a storm came through. And as soon as it was over, we came out of our basements to try to see what the damage had been. There's no damage that's visible. This is really damage to the economy that's much harder to see. So I think the interesting aspect of kind of the definition is, we're going to go back like we've never gone back before, because there's still this layer of danger, but it's each other, not the physical environment. So what we didn't really leave. We've just been hiding in the basement for a while.
Have either of your across your companies, and I guess Roy, for you, it's also the clients you represent, have there been particular departments or demographic groups that are more eager to come into an office environment versus those who are saying, look, I've figured out a way to be productive from home. I'm going to do that as long as I can.
Charlie, do you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I can comment a little bit. I mean, again, we have large numbers of our staff and partners who are essential. Our property teams, construction teams, engineers, security that, really had never left. And so, the folks who are, depending on the market, as it relates to our tenants, it depends. It goes back to kind of there's no one size fits all for office design, and there's no one size fits all for work from home. For some, tenants, it's been effective short term, and others are really looking forward to getting back. I would say, for the most part, the media companies are looking forward to getting back. The software development, despite some of the headlines, I would say, are looking forward to getting back. Anywhere, where you've got high level of collaboration driving new business. Those businesses are really looking forward to getting back. Some of the accounting firms, law firms, where it's more kind of focused work, are maybe treading a little slower. But general speaking, there's anywhere where collaboration and innovation are important. Those firms are a little further down the curve in their planning to re-enter, I would say.
And I'd say some of this, I'm going to continue to parrot Charlie. I think from an industry perspective, we are seeing some industries like professional services that, are certainly saying that they can continue to work from home and be productive. We have those industries that really need to create, that need to innovate, and that need to collaborate, that need to come back together to kind of get back to that tribal mode that really was driving and pushing those organizations forward. We have some organizations that never left. So I was actually on the phone just before this call with one of our clients that when I talked about reboarding, they're like, we never got off the plane. We're, to a great extent, I think, Charlie's point's well taken. It's no one size fits everyone. And the same thing will happen as we come back. I do want to make one point, and maybe this is the time. So outside of industry, but within every organization, we're seeing really three populations that, as we're surveying, and I think we're on week 23 with my global team, working with clients initially to go out and now to come back. As we're surveying the populations, we're finding three groups. One is that group that can continue to work from home for an extended period of time. That doesn't mean they won't ever come back into the office, but they can have more of a home base at home. We're finding a group that really needs to be in the office, either because of the essential work that they do, technology, and need to kind of scrum or collaborate with their team members on an ad hoc and a real-time basis. But we're also finding kind of this hidden portion of the workforce that their productivity is starting to erode. But we see this honeymoon period in the first 90 days of working from home. So we've all been on our honeymoon, and that honeymoon is going to end sometime in June. And that roughly 20 to 30% of the population that's not productive working from at home in an extended period of time is going to be even more impacted when we have no childcare over the summer, or it's limited. They're in urban environments where maybe they don't have enough space to really, do 2 phone calls with both spouses working at the same time, and who are also, there's the potential that they're impacted because a relative may be sick from the virus, or there may be other impacts in the household. So we think we're almost at the end of the honeymoon. And if you track the surveys we're doing in Asia, they've already started to see it. So we're seeing upwards of 60% of the workforce want to come back into the office for some portion of time. And we think that we'll catch up here in the United States sometime mid to late summer.
Well, I guess that begs the question then, as owners of office space, and with amenities and amenity mixes likely be potentially changing, are you having those conversations? Do you think that there will be certain amenities offered within an office building that might not have been as prevalent before, like childcare? Or is it that we hope that this crisis won't last long enough to change long-term amenity mixes inside of an office building?
I think we'll take a second look at those amenities and how they're relevant, but we do that with some cyclical aspect now. Before this happened, I mean, we had some clients that are like, we need special jelly beans to try to attract the workforce to come back into the office. And so some of the nuancing at that level, we think will go away. We'll be more realistic on our needs, more timely. Part of what we're hearing from the workforce is, when I'm at work, I want to be at work. When I'm in the office, I want to be in the office, but I don't want to be in the office all the time. So, the genie's out of the bottle a little bit on, can we work from home? And so imagine, and I know we've got a childcare provider that is looking at options of having kind of urban and satellite childcare. So, imagine a world where I have a small child. I want to have them in the daycare that's at the office, the 3 days I'm in the office, and then I want a daycare near home the 2 days that I'm at home. And so they're tooling up to offer that level of flexibility in the process. So I think we'll retool more than we'll replace.
Yeah, I just extend that a little bit. It's too early to say, Kevin, I think. I mean, there's, certainly, retail has been heavily impacted. And so, the urban retail, trend is something that we're watching closely. There's a potential macro theme along the lines of what you're talking about, where the urban retail, as you have less dense office spaces, become more, office purpose, more requirement versus amenity type spaces if you don't have the population to support the number of restaurants, et cetera, service areas. I think it's too early to say that, that's one of the predictions that are out there. So we're monitoring closely. I mean, most of our, the implication for our design would be, like you said, to provide more, baseline requirements of, to support an office tenant. Just to also comment a little bit on the work from home. I mean, the initial stay-at-home order, I think, was the golden era of work from home, right? You had people who were forced to stay at home. Everyone was nervous about their job security. So, that's not really surprising. There was nowhere to go. The bars were closed. There's no sports on TV. So productivity goes up, right? I don't think that's a surprising, outcome in hindsight. Our CEO, Lisa Picard, has a medium thought piece on this, but our belief is that the further away you get from, and a lot of that work was work that had already been going on, right? So I'm continuing on work that I had been doing before I had to work from home, and it's quite easy to keep doing that better. I've got more time to work on my spreadsheet or, repeat tasks that I've done before. As you get further away from that time period, and you do need to come up with new thoughts and build your business and innovate, that becomes less and less, return on investment, more difficult to do in a work from home environment. And so we think that, again, that's going to be, the further away we get from the initial work from home, the less productive people are going to be, and you're going to need people to come back to the office and start.
Hey, Kev, can I just jump in there for a sec, if you don't mind? Charlie, we've been very fortunate at CRETEC to have the extraordinary Lisa Picard speak at several of our conferences, and she's spoken a lot about the movement towards more flex space in your portfolio, and based on what the tenants are looking for. Do you think, though, that this pandemic and the work from home experiment will accelerate some of that trends towards companies wanting more flexibility in their workplace? And I'm obviously not talking about co-working. We're talking about flex, as she so eloquently described many times.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the other themes of her piece and our thinking at EQ is that, you know, people don't want to work from home all the time. People don't want to work in an office all the time. They don't want to work at a bench all the time. They want to have the option to work where I want. That best suits my business, best suits my my ability to attract and retain talent. And so we believe that work from home will become, you know, an option in that spectrum of places you work. And it's been other thoughts on it, but work from everywhere, work from anywhere. And so, yeah, we definitely agree that the flexibility, and we do think the co-working, you know, flex model in terms of the optionality it provides occupiers is going to, you know, come back relatively fast. Again, you know, certainly near term, we're seeing that a lot of uncertainty. People are less, you know, likely to make a long-term decision on a lease and an office space design. And so we see a lot of benefits to that from a design standpoint, as well as from a business commitment standpoint.
I mean, I can say just from our own company's perspective, you know, our headquarters is in Seattle. We are expanding our office footprint, not reducing it, because we want our employees to come back into the office and collaborate, but we want them to have an environment that they feel is safer and that there's just more room to move around. So for us, it's actually having the opposite effect. We're finding, at least in the building we're in, the developer was having issues with a couple tenants that were struggling. So we were able to get into a space that's double the footprint that we were in with definitely not double the increase in rental rates. So I think we might see that across a lot of office clients that tenants may choose without increasing headcount to increase space. Our co-working spaces in various cities across the country for our non-headquarters, we at least in Texas, we've been open for the last 2 weeks now, and I've stopped by in our space. It is a ghost town. You know, small companies that have co-working spaces, they are not yet returning. They don't feel like they want to. Maybe some of them are returning there occasionally to get out of the house. But other than that, it's definitely not, we're not in an environment where people feel totally safe. So with that as a segue, I'm curious what kinds of technology you're introducing in your buildings to account for this consumer confidence, employee confidence, and safety versus what types of technology probably have a lot of hype, but aren't really going to be that valuable in providing safety to tenants.
Yeah, so I mean, this is, you know, as we're planning for our, you know, reentry of, you know, large numbers of people, you know, we've been, you know, super thoughtful and detailed, and we've got a whole, you know, hierarchy of activities, right? I mean, the way the virus spreads is you know, typically through, you know, moisture droplets that you exhale. And so that's where all of the, you know, the physical distancing, the, you know, wearing facial coverings, you know, de-densifying spaces, all those are, you know, kind of at the top of our list. I do think that, you know, there are important things that we're doing also on the technology side. You know, one, you know, where we've started making investments before is, you know, touchless access. We think that's, you know, going to be it's first of all, it's more convenient. You know, it's easier if you can use, you know, one device to access from your parking through the lobby to the elevator to your space. And also it's, you know, can also be, you know, you're not touching any surfaces if you've got that, you know, your device to do that. So we're working with, you know, OpenPath and Rise and others. We've got some biometric options at our Willis Tower building, MorphoWave, where kind of accomplishes the same thing at the turnstile. So I think that's going to be one. I think that the other technology that we're in the process of rolling out is the tenant experience applications. And, you know, honestly, probably the key, most important thing there for me is relatively simple. It's the communication aspect of it. So it's being able to communicate. You know, I'm sure Roy would agree that, you know, customers, tenants coming back, occupiers, what they're asking for is, you know, real-time communication, transparency into what's going on in the building. You know, that provides a relatively or a direct method of communication. with the occupier to what's going on. The other thing you can use the tenant experience apps for is, transparency of cleaning and occupying spaces. So, we're using that with our cleaning vendors to, track and be transparent as far as when a conference room was last cleaned or when it was last occupied. And so, we know when someone leaves, if you add an occupancy sensor on that, as well as other technology we're looking at. So all these are important. And, obviously you've got more, building HVAC systems that we're looking at as well. But, those are kind of all things that we were working with before and are kind of timely for this type of a COVID and post-COVID environment.
And I think, to add on to that, Charlie, I mean, we're seeing the client experience or the experience tools being used to do surveys. So in locations where the tenant's required to ask a series of questions each day to the employees and kind of pushing that through, to even do like a QR code based platform where once you answer those questions, you can even take your temp at home, which I think the New York guidelines actually provide for. Take a picture of that. It goes into the tool, gives you a green QR code. And then when we get to the building, we want to be in the Disney line to get on the elevator. So we got our fast pass as we're kind of going through the process. But I think a lot of this is really forced a conversation that should naturally occur more than it probably did before COVID. So I think one of the things I really hope that comes out of this is more recurring, better communication links between the landlord and the tenant, and a better way to kind of build a community around that. So I think where we'll take the experience apps will be to reinforce the communication. We talk about, what we need to do to continue to keep the workforce safe is 90% behavior and 10% environment. And so those tools are what we're using to really drive it. And when you think that it takes people 90 days to really internalize a behavior to where they don't have to cognitively think about, I need to do it this way today, but they just naturally do it that way. It's going to take 90 days for us to get familiar with being back in the office. When we come back in, it's going to be super quiet. People are going to be wearing masks. They're not going to talk as much. There aren't going to be as many people. And so we're going to have to as we reboard or as we come back in, we're going to have to kind of remake what the office is. And I think, the communication aspect, the cleanliness and the expectation and the reassurance, you can't really make somebody comfortable. You can only provide an environment where they can get used to or accustomed to this new normal. And, we talk about the new normal. We're going to go through 5. We're going from stage 1 to stage 2. So there's 3 more even after this that we're going to have to transition through. So those types of tools, the change management aspect, driving behavior, and kind of reassuring people that, the environment is not the issue. The contact with other people is the issue that we need to be conscious of, and ways that the environment can support them in doing that's important.
Well,
Hey,
I think
Kev, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was wondering from your perspective, from Navigator CRE. I mean, what we've seen at CRETech is what used to be sort of nice to have. Those technology companies, I think, are stagnant. Is the kind word. But those that are must have are really accelerating their growth right now. And I was wondering, from Navigator CRE, to me always felt like a must have because of all the benefits that the platform offers. What have you guys been seeing from your perspective?
I didn't even have to pay you to say that.
I'm curious. I mean, I asked.
No, look, and obviously I hate to be super successful during a crisis, but that this is why we exist, right? Our platform's entire value prop was, regardless of what tool you use, regardless of what data you have, regardless of your geographic location, right? We bring it all into one space so that teams that are disparate can collaborate and make decisions, right? I think that is a trend that is only going to continue, right? Any technology that allows people not only to have business as usual, but to accelerate their business despite where they are and when they are and how they are, right, is going to be super helpful. There's a lot of great tech out there. But a lot of the decisions that have to be made, whether you're an owner of real estate or merely just an investor in it, is supposedly driven by data, right? And we there's no shortage of all the data that is being gathered by various companies. So I'd like to ask my panelists, right? There's no shortage, obviously. There's a flood of data. What data is actually helpful in informing you as an owner or an advisor to help make decisions on what new amenities to use, how to rethink space, what policies to introduce to your employees, versus what data is just it's just noise and it's causing more problems than it's solving.
Anything that's not backed by, sorry.
Go ahead, Roy.
Anything that's not backed up by the science. I mean, Charlie mentioned the mechanical systems. There's a lot of hype out there about what the mechanical systems can do to protect or to expose occupants of space. And I think, you know, those are the things that I always suggest to clients, that ask for the paper behind the hype or ask for the scientific. I think, and Kevin, I'll give you a shameless plug. You guys are, for a tool for us, the readiness aspect of Navigator and being able to track globally for clients, kind of spaces with different landlords in different places with different data sets, different platforms, different approaches in different languages with metric and US or imperial data all coming together, being able to sit down with the client and kind of track the readiness of their portfolio locally, regionally, nationally, and globally has been a big advantage for us with Navigator. And I think going forward, the things that we need and the data that we need really have to be backed up by the science and by the sampling that we're doing both in the population and the building. So I'm looking forward to all the forensics that we have that are coming out of this, just like some of the sampling that showed that the virus came into New York from Europe, not from China, and it went from New York to New Orleans from a population perspective. We're going to do those forensics and really understand this virus and viruses a lot better than we have in the past, and then be able to measure and kind of react. I will tell you, most clients are setting up their plan today and using technology to be ready to pull the trigger, and then to be able to monitor over time across these different phases. So, the tools that are able to morph and change, continue to measure and answer questions that we won't even know to ask for another 3 months because we don't have the forensics on the virus, are going to be the tools that really provide the most value.
Yeah, and as far as what data sources, we've been looking at, the way I, answer this question, what's most important for us is, the health of our business throughout this, the pandemic. And, obviously our first priority is the health and safety of our tenants, but we also, fiduciaries for our investors as well. So, and that's where, Navigator's been a super amazing partner for us. We had made an early investment in the BI platform, Navigator's BI platform, around a year ago or so. And, we were able with Navigator's help to rapidly stand up our accounts receivable information, which probably isn't a popular topic for the occupiers out there, but the owners may appreciate. We've been fortunate that our the vast majority of the office businesses in our buildings have been healthy and have been paying rent. It's been in the publicly traded comparables have 90+% rent collection. And we've managed the same, but we've been able to track that on a daily basis, and way more visibility than we had into it before. And we're looking forward to the day when touring velocity starts, and we'll bring in our touring velocity and our CRM system, and there's a visibility into the operational things that we're tracking right now. Turnstile data, our information, our electricity. Demand and consumption, all these, we still utilize a number of different, variety of different systems, and they're all, cranking out their own data, and each of them, individually is on a standalone basis is a relatively capable reporting platform. But the real power from a business owner and operator is to be able to combine that data into meaningful, views that allow you to generate business insights from that and make decisions. So we're looking forward to the business touring velocity kicking up again and tracking that metric in our Navigator platform.
Hey, Kev, if I could just jump on that with for a question follow-up for Roy and Charlie is, at Cretech, again, our focus is on helping as many of these real estate technology companies find their way, thrive in this in the real estate industry. Questions that we get all the time is how would a technology company reach the two of you, right? And what is your process like? I mean, you must be inundated with inbound inquiries on LinkedIn and email and people wanting to demo their products for you. What's your internal processes like to vet a company like a Navigator? How does it work? Is there a priority first and then go out? Tell us about the process.
So we're always on the lookout for new tech. So we have a team that's focused on that does an evaluation. And so we have a team that searches and then a team that kind of handles inbound. What we typically do is look for where the fit is. So we're always trying to kind of structure needs from clients and from the industry, and then see how those needs map. I will tell you that the biggest question that we put out there now that Kevin answered correctly, the ability to share data across platforms in a way that is agnostic and that is leverageable or usable is probably the one hang up that most companies coming in to work with us struggle with. I mean, I was on 2 calls earlier today where we asked that question. They said no, and we just can't continue because, that ultimately being able to analyze the data across platforms is the most important aspect as far as what we see happening in the future. But internal process, they can either come directly through me or through our technology group. They'll get a single person, we'll sit down with them and do an evaluation, bring that back to the team. If we think there's a fit, we'll come in and further conversation, do a pilot or a test, and then put them in the mix if they're a fit for a need.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one best way to approach a technology solution to EQ. We have myself, I oversee our product group, which includes our the technology view from a kind of a matrix perspective across the company. Our CEO Lisa Picard is out there frequently, and so she is approached a lot. We have a woman who works for me who's amazing. Mickey Ward is our VP of Real Estate Technology, which is a relatively rare position, I think, in our industry among our peers. So she also does a lot of our screening at the top of the funnel. Our ownership by Blackstone, they obviously see a lot across real estate product types, and they have a technology group that is on the lookout and gets approached a lot. Our portfolio and property teams also, in the individual markets, hear about things. Typically, if it comes in that way, it'll cross my desk and Nikki's desk and Blackstone for review. But that's our process. And like Roy said, the ability to share data, at this point is the ante. That's the table stakes, I would say, for getting into to work with us. And then we look for good ideas that we can pilot at a building or two, and then hopefully make a pretty fast decision and roll it out to the portfolio. So we're out there a lot, and I think we try not to be on the bleeding edge, but we try to experiment with a bunch of different technologies if it's got a business case and it solves a pain point for us.
For any Cretech companies that are out there that are trying to get in front of other owners and want honest opinions on what we think of various owners out there that we're working with. Obviously, we love Newmark and Blackstone that are here with us, as well as some folks from Starwood who are going to be on the panel today that got pulled in the meeting. So happy to talk about them as well as others. There's a ton of questions coming in on the chat, so I want to try to get to a few of them. And one of the most intriguing ones that has come in, because I've talked about it back when I was at Deloitte, is about parking. And we saw this movement slowly away from parking and the repurposing of parking garages, with the thought that things were going to get more dense and more commuting was going to be done less. And there was this big push to public transportation options. And now we're seeing that being called into question. So I'd love opinions on what's going to be done with parking structures. How are you going to handle parking for tenants, and is that going to change?
Yeah, so I think for as it anything else in this conversation depends. There's a near-term issue and there's a long-term, issue opportunity in both cases, right? We think that near-term, there's going to be higher demand for parking. When again, all the things that we're doing to make an office space, low risk to re-enter, the physical distancing, the facial coverings, the technology solutions. When we poll our employees and our tenants, the main things that they're concerned about are outside of the office, right? It's childcare and the commute to the office, and if they're in a vulnerable population, those are kind of the top three. And so, parking addresses obviously the mass transit question. And so, we're anticipating an increased demand for parking. We have, depending on the setup of the building, we're limiting or providing additional cleaning where there's valet assists. As far as a long-term investment thesis is parking come back, I think it's way too early to say. There's like anything else, the science is evolving, and all these comments, we need to remain flexible as we gain more information and the science improves and information, you get more information. But as far as investment thesis on suburban versus urban mass transit, I think it's way too early to make that type of a call. And something we're looking at and see if it develops into a long-term trend. But certainly coming back, we anticipate a higher demand for non-mass transit solutions, whether it's parking or Uber, other non-mass transit.
Hey, Roy, I would ask you, as kind of the person who oversees global workplace and facilities management for Newmark, do you think that this is calling into question the validity and effectiveness of the open office? Is the open office dead, or is layout only going to be incrementally affected by COVID?
I think we're going to take a breath relative to it. I don't think clients are not coming to us and saying that we're going to scrap the open office. They're basically saying we'll go to a smaller percentage occupancy in those spaces. So I think, the pendulum kind of swung all the way to one side relative to densification and kind of compressing individual space. I think it'll normalize, but I don't think that new normal will do away with benching as a concept. It may adjust the density or adjust the approach. And I think that, Kevin, it's so funny if you back up probably 9 months ago now, I've been doing this for 23 weeks. If you back up 9 months ago, every news article everybody was trying to get people to come back in the office, and they were doing everything conceivable to do that. People wanted to sit that close to each other in some situations, they didn't in others. So, we saw the hype and a lot of the science behind, we had compressed too far. So again, the science is saying we'll normalize to that. But, we don't come to the office to go in a room and close a door. And that's the thing we're going to be able to do best at home. We come to the office to work with other people. Those spaces may be bigger. We may have less of the individual spaces and more of the group spaces, if you kind of look at what naturally was progressing with workplace. But I feel like as a workplace approach, so many clients are kind of running around in this hyper excited, hyper media driven mode, where we've totally forgotten what we spent 20 years getting to, and it was only 9 months ago. I'm kind of waiting for the baby to be born and the new baby to look a lot like the last generation of the baby, but smarter than the last time around. And I think we'll get there. I just want everybody to take a breath, let us get through the delivery. Let's let the toddler, or let the newborn become a toddler before we make massive real estate decisions.
Well, then that begs the question, do you think this sense of collaboration and community that is kind of the purpose of the office, is that going to extend beyond a tenant's own office, right? Charlie, you brought up tenant experience apps like Rise, it's a great platform. Most of that communication is owner to tenant or tenant to owner. Do you think there's going to be more tenant to tenant communication and some sort of social network or community that happens inside of an office building as a result of this?
Yeah, so we work with currently H2O and Rise for our tenant experience apps, and we have relatively solid engagement across the platform, those platforms. I think again it depends on the building. It depends on the population, the occupier population that you have. From my comment before, I saw there's a question that was mainly focused on owner to tenant communication, which is not always the most efficient. And so I think that's a great application, and now in a pandemic situation where we want to provide real-time communications on where have we cleaned, have we had cases or suspected cases in our building. And so that's something that tenants provides value for them and helps tamp down on some of the fears that we've been discussing. As far as it goes for a tenant kind of community building, we're working on it. We've got great marketing teams, and we're working with great partners as far as building that up. I think it's just going to depend on it's going to be some buildings it's going to have a lot of engagement, and depending on the community you have there, you may have a bunch of people who have similar interests, riding their bike to work or whatever. But there may be other buildings where it's less of an important aspect of it. It's the benefit of the apps is that it's kind of a one-stop location for all these things. And so if people engage in some aspects of the app and not in others, it's we still find that we get value out of it.
Well, it sounds like either way there is going to be and is a push toward more contactless access, more contactless travel, more contactless communication. Are there any spaces where you think that's not going to happen? Any verticals, really?
I think we're a tribe at heart, or we're tribes at heart. I live in the South where we like to hug. So I think that's gonna become a little more digital for the short term. But I think where contact is just gonna change. So I'm waiting for a convergence of the Office Experience app, Facebook, and my car or motorcycle. To where it's a connection, I kind of across all these tribal connections that I manage kind of throughout my day. And so if I were going to bet on where all this was going to go is a much more homogeneous, seamless approach from a contact perspective. That my son's 10 years old and he knows when his friends are, I don't even know what the app is, but he knows where his friends are locally because they're all a part of a little tribe. I think that that aspect of kind of where the technology and space may converge is where I think it will go, and what we need to kind of support this new style of working or new way of working.
Kev, I would just like to just quickly follow up on that. It's like Charlie and Roy, and even you, Kevin, what is your perspective, though? It's got to be incredibly challenging, though. You've got assets in, say, New York versus other parts of the country that, where it really wasn't much of an impact, and where we sit in the New York, Jersey metropolitan area. I mean, people are shocked to understand how bad it really was here for a while, and we're still at the end of it, I hope, hopefully. But in other parts of the country, really wasn't much of an impact in a health scare, and people don't know other people that were impacted. But parts of the country are being impacted so differently. So from your perspectives, that must create great challenges for you to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one size fits all for a market or a building. We've had our offices have been re-entering in Nashville for the last couple of weeks. Denver is about the same, and so there are parts of the country that are opening up, re-entering certainly earlier than New York and San Francisco. But it's interesting though, culturally, we've seen pretty broad acceptance of all the things that we're talking about, making the office environment low risk. I mean, people are physical distancing. We've had remarkable, compliance with facial covering wearing. People are, getting comfortable getting in elevators. We still have, physical things we're doing differently as far as, we've removed, furniture in common areas and things like that as the space they're coming back to is different. But, with few exceptions, it's been, relatively smooth in the early on. And then so our plan is to, base what we learned of people coming back in Nashville and Denver and apply that to the other markets as they start to come back as well. New York and Willis Tower, where you've got 15,000 people, have kind of unique challenges, and those plans are a little more detailed. But overall, the playbook is kind of the same, and then the details of how you implement that we have to tailor for the tenant base and the building.
And Charlie, I can imagine this is similar on the landlord side, but on the tenant side, you're having to manage a whole portfolio of offices that are coming back at different stages across the country at the same time. And so even being able to communicate that to a mobile population that at some point will be moving back and forth between those offices. And Michael, you're right. I mean, it's just like with the Spanish flu 100 years ago, the center part of the country was hit less than the two coasts were. And the more urban, the higher the impact, the more rural, the suburban, the impact. And so I think, if anything, the flexibility we're going to need to manage and the adaptability we're going to need to support and reinforce over the next 9 months is really going to be driven by the technology, and everything from understanding what the workforce needs, helping them manage their access to it, to being able to, I don't want to say raise an alarm, but to be able to escalate something if we do have a positive in a building or in an office environment, and manage that and communicate it and do all the right things to kind of keep the workforce safe in those unusual protocols that we're going to have to react to and that we're not going to be able to plan for kind of the timing on.
Well, how much does public policy / legislation weigh into some of this decision making? Because obviously we're a constitutional republic, right? So every state can and apparently is playing by their own rules. Partially because I don't think we have a federal standard, right, that is easy for people to follow. So how do stay-at-home orders and social gathering policies and whatnot weigh into building opening decisions or reboarding or reentry, as you call it?
Well, for every tenant, there's a set of triggers that incorporate those local jurisdictional changes, and 50 states, 50 opinions has kind of been our mantra as we've gone through this, and realize that in some states we have cities, counties, states all making contradictory decisions at the same time. So your drive to work could cause you to change your wardrobe 3 times. So yes, I think that the having to react to that and kind of help tenants or help clients kind of manage all those expectations, whether it's taking the highest protocol from a governmental perspective or setting a protocol from an organizational perspective. Again, it gets back to communicating the expectation, managing that 90% of the behavior.
So I guess I'll go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, it's just similar answer. I bet we have a lot of resources dedicated to this, right? Like Roy said, there's 50 states. There's also, cities have their own, overlays. Counties have their own overlays, and so our people in each of the markets have to be experts in. Our Nashville manager was just saying now they're up to, you can come into 50%, reentry for an office. It's way too much for someone central to keep track of all that stuff. And so, we've got PR experts and legal advice, and we've hired occupational health experts to help us track all that stuff, and it all goes into our detailed reentry plan for each building. But it's a lot to keep track of.
Ash, am I actually allowed to share my screen if I have one thing to show?
I believe you do. Yes, you do. Do you see the share screen button on the bottom of your page? It's a green button.
It says it's disabled, but I'll just quickly mention to do one little plug for the platform. So Navigator created something we call Industry Renaissance. And Industry Renaissance takes in data from Bureau of Labor Statistics, CDC, WHO, IFME, and other sources. And we've created kind of a scoring algorithm that shows county by county which counties are prepared for more reentry and reopening. And we've done some of this work actually with Newmark and some of our owners, which is really neat. And basically, Industry Renaissance measures what type of occupation is most risky with regard to social distancing. How big is the payroll within that industry in that county? And when you combine a low risk industry with high payroll, you can make some decisions on where to have reentry encouraged in a quicker way, or you can help owners understand which tenants, quite frankly, should be healthier in doing business and don't then deserve lease renegotiations or blends and extends. We're using that technology to help a lot of our owners and advisors help their clients when it comes to renegotiating leases and portfolios, quite frankly. So one little plug for Navigator. The last question I want to ask to the panelists is about, I think everyone's been talking about it, but contact tracing and the idea that we would try to determine who's been exposed to the pandemic in one form or fashion, how they might spread it to others, and how that affects rules of privacy.
So,
Well,
I mean,
here's my,
go ahead, Charlie.
my point of view on this is, there's the public policy, aspect, which I don't have a firm, opinion on one way or the other. I think it's been helpful in some of the Asia Pac countries when we've talked to our colleagues for assisting their, office reentry. You have everyone's seen them by now, the red, yellow, green, QR code, which is a kind of a public health, indicator. In an office environment, again, given all the things we've talked about, what we understand, how the virus spreads, we have a relatively, we're relatively capable of contact tracing without a technology solution. So we've got a known population. We typically know where they go. Their path of travel is typically restricted to the elevator, to their their path of travel from entering the building to their space. And we've had we've done contact tracing manually for the last over 2 or 3 months. So I don't see a big need for contact tracing in an office environment. Just given the fact that we've got a pretty good low tech solution. That's my current view. Like everything else, I'm open to different opinions and flexibility on that viewpoint.
And I think Charlie's right. I think in the office buildings, what we learned and implemented from 9/11 has given us a big advantage when it comes to tracing in the office. Typically, people are carding or doing some sort of access to get into the building. Where the contact tracing really is a big benefit is in all the other public realms that we access, and going from home to the office, going to the grocery store, all those other environments where we don't even know the person next to us. We don't know that they're from the same community. And so I think that's the real advantage, and to some extent, both the focus and the challenge. And in the office, we kind of have a stable physical environment. So getting the tech mechanics to works pretty well. And Charlie, this may have been how you've done it. We've done badge access tracing to be able, when we've had an outbreak, to be able to know who was on the floor, who was in an area with an individual, and that's worked pretty well. And we know who the individuals are based on that card access. And we already have the ability to go pull that data, or the tenants do, as a part of that process. So I think, Kevin, the question is, do we need it in public more than do we need it in the office?
Yeah,
I think yes.
That makes sense. Well, I guess we're running short on time, so I'll try to do a quick summary of what I heard. And that is, I think for most owners and occupiers of real estate, right, ensure that you're following, good hygiene practices, that you are using some sort of technology that allows you to communicate open and often with your tenants and with each other. Make sure you're gathering the requisite data you need to make decisions. And then maybe most importantly, provide your employees and tenants the opportunity to work from various places with technology that is interoperable, so that if you're at home versus a co-working space versus the public space versus the office, you are still enabled to be productive and happy with collaboration. So very much appreciative of the time of all the panelists today. Michael, any last words?
Thanks, Kevin. I would just say that, you know, while the pandemic has been horrific in a human toll, an economic toll, I personally remain so optimistic about what did you call it in the beginning? Our return to work, our back to work, our more people come back to work, experience and experiment. I'm so hopeful and optimistic because of leaders like you, Kevin, like Roy, and like Charlie, and your organizations. And our sector has been really on the forefront of investing in technology and creating an environment where people feel safe, secure, and they have information to be able to come back in full force sooner than later. And so I'm just, you know, incredibly proud to be part of this conversation and grateful to your leadership, Kevin, and the entire team at Navigator CRE, and Roy and Charlie, and for all your support and great leadership. It makes me very, very hopeful and optimistic. So thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for your time. Any of the questions that were submitted to chat that we didn't get a chance to answer, I and my team will actually go in and answer all of them to you. I don't want anything left unanswered. So with that, back to you, Ash. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. That is all the time that we have. Great panel and great conversation. Mike, Roy, Charlie, Kevin, thank you guys very much for sharing your thought leadership. I certainly learned a lot. Loved the commentary. And Charlie, I did read Lisa's Medium post this morning. Great. I even commented on it. Great thought leadership from her, and great friend. If you are,
I'm a shadow of a stand-in for Lisa, so thanks for having me here.
If you, anyone in our community, if you would like to use the power of CREtech to be featured in an exclusive co-produced webinar on a topic of your choice to showcase your company's expertise, please email me at ash@cretech.com or by going to our website at cretech.com. I see that we are 2 minutes over the hour, and I know that everyone has to go back to work to be super productive, as we discussed today. Again, my name is Ash Gonzandia, and it's been a pleasure to be your host today. Thank you all to our amazing audience, to our amazing thought leaders today. Thank you guys very much, and have a great, wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Ash. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.